We are back looking at week 4 tier list for running backs and wide receivers. It was a hard one for me this week. I'll be honest. We'll just kind of jump right into it here. Starting off with the running back position. 40, I think there's actually 41 running backs. I don't know why I went with one. There was a reason, I can't remember. But as always, have our number one overall guys, Saquon, Breece, Bijan, Kyron, Derrick Henry. I think that's going to be a potential high-scoring game, and they're going to want to run the ball against Buffalo, so I put Derrick Henry in there. Still kind of funny. I'm continuing to put Bijan in there, but I think he's like RB16 on the year or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe one more week. If we get one more week of this, might be moving them out of here. And then the no-brainers. We'll kind of talk about these together. Jordan Mason, Jonathan Taylor, James Conner, Alvin Kamara. No particular order, by the way. Achane. Brian Robinson is now in this list because the dude's been awesome, and Austin Eckler's out as well. And this is more for week 4. It's kind of season long, but it's also more for week 4. Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, revenge game, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, and Montgomery I have in here as well because we keep saying, well, he needs a touchdown. He keeps getting touchdowns, and he's top 10 on the year. So is there one or two guys you want to touch on there, Brian, either in the number one overall or no-brainer list?
I mean, it all looks pretty solid. There's not a whole lot to talk about, I don't think. I mean, everyone's starting all of these guys. Yeah, I really think if James Cook keeps playing the way that he is, like, I don't know if he has number one up, like, overall upside, but I mean, he just keeps getting it done. It's nice to see the involvement and everything. So, but tough matchup this week too with Baltimore. So I totally get that.
I mean, he did have a 28-point week, which was second behind Alvin Kamara's ridiculous, 5 touchdown game. So, I think he does. I think he does have that potential. And I was telling someone I did a little live stream last night, like they're like long-term, or should I sell high on James Cook? And I was kind of saying, like, look, since Joe Brady took over as the offensive coordinator, like last year in that stretch, Cook was top RB11, and this year he's like RB5 or something. So I don't think it's going away really. So, those are the no-brainer list here. I do have RB2 with upside. These are guys I'm probably going to be starting for the most part. It's ETN and it's Ramondre Stevenson. So I know, with ETN, we can start with him. RB25 on the year, which is very, very disappointing. Hasn't really busted, just hasn't been great. Playing Houston, I think I just look at him right now as, until they get their shit together, Jacksonville is like RB2, which, and he has the upside to be top 12, and kind of Ramondre Stevenson to me is in that list as well. RB23 on the year was like top 12 the first 2 weeks and then was horrendous. Last week, 0.3 points, lost people their weeks. So I think people are going to be afraid of Ramondre Stevenson. But weirdly enough, Patriots play the 49ers. I think it's not a terrible matchup. Now, there is a realm. You run the simulation. You do the Doctor Strange thing. You run it a million times. There's definitely a decent percentage where 49ers just blow this game. Ramondre does nothing. But I think it could be kind of kept close a little bit. And that's good for Ramondre. So I think he can catch 4 or 5 passes, get 15 carries, and we'll see what happens. So agree, disagree with those guys? You think they should be up, down? What do you think here?
No, I think just given their last, like what they've done, like you said, like Ramondre last week was obviously a big bummer, and ETN still hasn't quite been what we drafted him to be, but they're the obvious number ones on their team. I do agree. Ramondre, I think, makes me a little more nervous because his role can kind of evaporate in a game that gets away from him quick. And ETN, honestly, he's just so involved. He's playing 70% of the snaps, and he's involved in the passing game. Evan Ingram's still out, like he's been ruled out, I believe, for this week. So yeah, I think you're definitely firing him up, but bated breath, I guess. And the Houston defense is not like lights out against running backs, but they are in the bottom. Well, let me think about how to phrase this. They're one of the better teams against the run in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a little scary, but you're going to start them.
Yeah. After the first 3 weeks, they're giving up the 10th least points, I guess, to running backs. But yeah, I was trying to remember who they were playing. They played the Bears in there, so that's probably one of the reasons why they're so low, because Swift has been awful. Next tier, I put I want to find a spot tier. Like, I really want to start these guys this week. Chuba Hubbard, obviously coming off of what he did last week to the Raiders, and he's playing the Bengals, and I don't think the Bengals defense is that great. Tony Pollard, I know he had a down week last week, but he's playing the Dolphins. I think they're going to try and run the ball a little bit more and take it out of Levis's hands. I keep saying that, but hopefully they actually do it. So I like this matchup for Pollard against the Dolphins. I think they have good cornerbacks as well, the Dolphins. So I think the way to beat them is to kind of run the ball a little bit. And Cam Akers was a tough one for me. I really struggled kind of where to put him, but he's going to get all the work with Mixon and Dameon Pierce out. And unfortunately, we didn't really get to see what that meant last week because the game was kind of out of hand with Minnesota from the beginning. So I'm hoping it's kind of like what Mixon has been getting, or at least got the first week. We've only seen 1 week of Mixon, but he doesn't need to be necessarily super efficient. He's just going to get a bunch of touches in a good game script against the Jacksonville. So yeah, any guys there? One of these three that you feel most confident in starting or least confident in? Or?
So is Mixon actually ruled out? Like, I see 35 minutes ago, he actually is practicing today, but I'm sure it's limited. It doesn't quite say that, but I don't remember if I got the notification that he's officially ruled out. And so obviously, like, keep an eye on that if you're trying to start Cam Akers. But yeah, no, I think Pollard, like you said, like he has the best situation. I don't think Miami's going to necessarily keep it close. I mean, they could, but I think they will try and keep the ball out of Levis's hands on the Tennessee side. So I think Pollard will continue his, 60-40 split and still be involved in the passing game. So I like him the best for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Mixon did return to practice, so definitely pay attention to that. I have the great matchups tier here. These are two guys who you could probably afford benching, but when they have really good matchups, you kind of want to take advantage of it, I think, because they're just kind of matchup-based running backs. It's Zach Moss, who is RB22 on the year in half PPR, and has 2 good games and 1 bad game. So, like, he's been better than maybe it seems. He's playing the Panthers, so that seems to be a pretty good matchup to target. And then Najee Harris going up, the Steelers going up against the Colts, heading into last week before the Colts played the Bears. The Colts were the team to target. They're 16th, tied for 16th in the league in terms of fantasy points given up, so right in the middle. But they played the Bears, who did nothing. So like they were the target. Team to target, like the worst run defense team. Maybe they've improved. I don't know. Both these guys, I really want to find. I kind of want to start, especially with Jaylen Warren out for Najee. So, I'm going to try and squeeze these guys in if possible, because I think you can finally get, a good top 15 week from them, from either one of them or both.
Yeah, I definitely like Zach Moss a lot more this week for sure. Like, given the matchup, and I mean, he is the obvious number 1 guy on the team. Like, we see what the like he's not what Joe Mixon was for the Bengals, but he's still kind of like he's filling that role in as much in the capacity that he's able to, I guess. And it was good to see him get 6 targets last week. Obviously, that game was. Pretty, back and forth quite a bit. So they needed him. But, with Higgins back this last week and he didn't do a whole lot, I expect that to go down a little bit. But yeah, I like Zach Moss this week for sure. And Najee's just I mean, he is who he is, like I'm just not sure really what to make of him. You're still starting him. Is the guy, and I think Warren re-injured himself, didn't he?
Yeah, Warren's not going to play this week, most likely.
Yeah. So, yeah, he missed practice yesterday and on Wednesday. We don't have the Friday report yet. So, yeah, I think both these guys are easy starts. They almost kind of belong in like the category right above. Like, you got to find a spot for these guys.
Yeah, it's just, it's hard to say that with a guy like Najee and even Zach Moss, who hasn't been efficient and stuff. It's like, do I have to, like find a spot or want to find a spot? Because again, like Najee, just like you mentioned, hasn't been good. He's been RB 32 on the year, which isn't good.
Yeah.
But he's getting like 20 touches a game. Yeah,
no touchdowns. And I don't know if that doesn't necessarily have to change either, like,
yeah.
So yeah, no, I get it.
I have flexes up next. Guys that, I'm okay with flexing for the most part. J.K. Dobbins is actually someone I don't want to flex this week.
Right.
Potentially no Herbert. I think maybe there's 2 starting offensive tackles are going to be out. They're playing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs, you go back to last year, have like shut down every running back, and it's been like CMC, Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson. Who was it? Zach Moss. That's not anyone to talk about, but there was one more in there, and it's just like they've been lights out. So yeah, Joe Alt, their right tackle, hasn't practiced Wednesday, Thursday, and Rashawn Slater, their other tackle, hasn't practiced, and then they have their other tackle, or he's their right guard, is also not really practicing. So I really don't want to start J.K. Dobbins if I can avoid it, but I don't mind it if you want to flex him. Jerome Ford, it just seems like a flex to me. Carson Steele, he got good usage and stuff. Don't think he's going to be super efficient, but yeah, you can get 15 plus carries and maybe a couple catches, and that's going to be flex worthy, especially if he gets a touchdown. And then Rachaad White, I really don't know what to do with Rachaad White at this point. Like, am I overreacting putting him this far down? Should I have him like RB2 with upside, or should I have him in his own tier? Like, I really don't know what to do with Rachaad White, who seems to be losing more and more ground to Bucky Irving, but Bucky Irving is also a little beat up. But RB 34 in the year for Rachaad White, 2 back-to-back bad games. So yeah, what are you doing with any of these guys, and in particular Rachaad White?
Yeah, I mean Rachaad White, like he probably does fall down here, especially given the matchup with the Eagles. Like that's not, it's not anything to be like super scared about. But like they're part of the better half of the league as far as like what they're letting up, and that probably has to do with their style of play. Like, but I don't know if it's like Devontae Smith. I don't know if he's been ruled out yet, but I'm pretty sure AJ Brown has. Like, they might just kind of keep that one close.
I think Devontae Smith didn't practice today, so he's basically going to be out. And then AJ Brown actually returned to practice today. So we'll see if he plays or not.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of curious, like what that's going to look like, I guess, against Philly. Like, you can kind of see it going either way. They are getting God, why is his name slipping my mind? But they're getting some guys back on the Bucks, like on the defensive side of the ball, and their line. Yeah, their line and their defense is hopefully going to play most of their starters. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens, especially if Brown and Smith play. Like, I'm more nervous about White if Brown plays, for sure, just because like the potential to run up that board a little bit. But yeah, I mean, White has been super inefficient. He's still getting, like it's a 70-30 split basically. So I think you're starting him this week, but this is probably his last week where he's kind of like almost guaranteed a start position.
Yeah, Bucks are really beat up. I'm just looking at it now. They have 17 players on the injury report. It's literally a third of their 52-man roster. Bucky Irving went from limited to did not practice. That's never a good sign. Usually want to So it's a hamstring. So if that's the case, then Rachaad White does get bumped up a little bit, and I'm going to be starting him. And it's not going to be efficient, but he's still going to catch probably 5-6 passes. So
yeah, I do like Carson Steele the best, given like how beat up. We don't even know if Herbert's going to play. It's like, what are the Chargers going to look like this week? Like, I don't think it's going to be good, which does make me very nervous for Dobbins. And I can totally see Steele carrying the ball 17 times, just like he did last week. We'll have to see what the Kareem Hunt impact is there. So I think he's appropriate here.
Yeah, maybe there should be a tier of like RB2 low upside, and like him and Rachaad White can fit in there. But we'll see. We'll see after this week. I got a few guys here. They could see expanded roles or have seen expanded roles. Braylon Allen is obvious. He's actually been flex worthy recently. I don't know if that's really going to continue, but he definitely needs to be rostered and could be seeing some more touches. Bucky Irving, we just talked about. Sucks that he might be injured, but Roschon Johnson sounds like they want to get him some more touches, and they did. He took over the Travis Homer role, which was, third down, 2-minute drill. And he seemed to be the next in line for the early down stuff. The only problem is they were still using Swift, and Khalil Herbert was like the goal line guy. So you might have a case of like Roschon's the third down and 2-minute drill. Swift is the early down and Herbert is the goal line, and none of them are useful. But just watch Roschon. I think, in deeper leagues, he should definitely be rostered. And then Emmanuel Wilson could be kind of like the next A.J. Dillon. Like, he looks pretty good. He got, I think, 12 carries last week. He's averaging 5 yards a carry this year on limited touches, but like they could, want to save Josh Jacobs a little bit. They always, again, I keep mentioning it, LaFleur loves using 2 running backs. So, this could be his new A.J. Dillon. So any of these guys you're particularly interested to see their role in week 4 the most?
Well, it would be Bucky if, given what the coach said about him after this last game, that's like, well, we got to get this guy the ball a little more. And he definitely looks a little better than White's been playing for sure, but the injury just like muddies that water. Emmanuel Wilson, like, I mean, I don't think you were even trying to argue this, but like, I'm not starting any of these guys. Like, it gets like really muddy here, but yeah, definitely all like good stashes, and it'll be kind of interesting. I mean, Marshawn Lloyd has only missed 1 game on his IR stint, or has he missed 2? I don't know if that really matters too much, like, because someone else is in there playing and playing well.
I think don't expect anything from Marshawn Lloyd. He's a rookie that hasn't been playing. Like, they're just going to roll with Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson, as much as I like Lloyd.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Wilson, 15 and a half points last week on the, he had the touchdown catch, 2 catches, 35 yards, 50 yards on the ground. I'm just saying, if he's going to get 15 touches, like, he will be flex worthy. So not this week. I want to wait and see, but.
And if Love comes back this week, I'm still not expecting him necessarily. But it is a divisional game, it is like a very important game for both of these teams, honestly.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, they'll both be 3-1 if the Packers win. I believe that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is very important. So I can definitely see Love making a push to play. And honestly, I think Love being back will be good for Emmanuel Wilson, because it'll take some guys out of the box a little bit, and they'll have to respect the pass a lot more. So
yeah,
definitely I feel more comfortable starting Wilson if Love plays.
Yeah. Next tier is just the you failed me tier. These are guys that you drafted potentially as starters, and man, they suck. They're not even giving you like, at least they're RB3s. Like, they're not even really giving you that. Swift is RB45 on the year. Javante's RB50. Zamir White's RB52. None of them, I think, have given you a double-digit week. They're just, I'm benching them. Like, I think Javonte Williams is over under rushing yards is like 26 according to Vegas. Swift is probably going to lose his job. Zamir White, it's all bad. If you had to choose one of these 3 to like, okay, this is the guy I think of these 3 could turn it around and be like at least a flex-worthy play? Do you have a lean here, or are they all just kind of garbage at this point?
Definitely not good, especially given this week. But I think Swift's basically, it's funny because like he's probably the most involved out of these three guys, like in his offense, and like he's the one I'm most like willing to like just move on from.
Yeah.
Javonte, it's just kind of like, man, like the matchup's bad again this week, and it's not like he was like, he has played some tougher defenses, and like the Broncos are like trying to figure out like how they want to try and win. Still very involved in the the passing game, and we expect a lot of dump offs and stuff. So I still want to roster him, but he's 1 week away from getting cut too. And Zamir White, like, man, I don't know what the hell. Like Madison's outplaying him. It seems like, he only played 22% of the snaps last week. It's just kind of like,
yeah, he's this year's Madison, and Madison's outplaying him. So
basically,
yeah. So, handcuffed here, 3 guys. There's probably a couple more out there, but 3 guys I think definitely should be rostered as handcuffs: Chase Brown, Ty Chandler, Tyler Algier. Don't really need to talk about that. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. Obviously, if Walker's out and Charbonnet's in, the no-brainer, even though it is a tough matchup against the Lions. And Kenneth Walker, to me, if he's going to play and is healthy, he's in the no-brainer, or at least RB2 with upside. Like, I'm starting him. And then I think Charbonnet probably falls into a handcuff or maybe a flex if they're going to. We just don't know how they're going to use them, because the one game we have, they just weren't really using Charbonnet. So I would definitely try to bench him there. And Kenneth Walker did return to practice yesterday, so that's why I mentioned those 2 guys. Tajay Spears. Well, I don't know what the hell to think of Tajay Spears and what to do, because game 1 it was like kind of all Pollard and no Tajay Spears, and then they said, look, we need to get Spears more involved, and he was actually out snapping Pollard in week 2 in the first half, and then he got hurt. And then last week, he had 6 touches, but he did have 4 catches. Like, what is Tajay Spears? Like, where should we put him? Is he a flex at best in PPR leagues? Is he kind of a wait and see? Could see expanded role? Like, what is he in?
I mean, I could definitely see flexing him in PPR. Like, we talk in the context of half PPR, in which case I think he's just a handcuff, but it's going to be tough, like, to even know what there's not a whole lot else behind him necessarily. So if something did happen to Pollard, like, I think he will see an expanded role. And, like we were saying, if they want to keep the ball out of Levis's hands, like he would have to step up. But yeah, his usage is very low. Like, it's only the receiving work that's like, making him even worthy of a roster spot, basically. Like, not even startable, obviously.
What's hard is, like, again, like week 2, his usage was looking good. Like 6 carries, 2 catches in the first half, I think, or maybe even a little bit less, is solid. You extrapolate that, it's 15, 16 touches with 3-4 catches. And then last week, though, no one got the ball. Pollard didn't really touch the ball, and neither did Tajay. So yeah, it's really hard. So I just put him in his own tier. I agree, PPR, he's probably a flex. Anything else, I probably would just want to wait and see a little bit. So, and then Eckler I had on here, but he got ruled out. But I keep telling you, Eckler's been sneaky good this year, and it keeps popping up. Like, but
yeah, I wonder. I'm actually really curious to see what Charbonnet's role is when Ken Walker does come back. Like, do they just go right back to him? Is he the Alexander Madison to Kenneth Walker's Dalvin Cook, back in Minnesota a few years ago? Like, does he just like basically just goes back into that, that 3rd down role? Not that that's what, I mean, Cook was a 3-down back, but does he go back into that 3rd down role and just kind of fade back into like, oh, just waiting for an injury to come back? Because he has been good, so it's hard to know.
One good game.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. I mean,
he's good for fantasy both weeks.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, that second game.
What's tough is like the matchup too. The Lions are legitimately good against running backs. They're number 1 this year and giving up an average of 6 points in their first 3 weeks. So That's what makes it a little bit harder too. But I agree. I think they will get an expanded role. So, yeah, on to receivers. I had a hard time with receivers this week. Number one overall, Jefferson, Rice, Chase, Nico, Amon St. Brown. No brainers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Godwin, DK Metcalf, Olave. Basically, if like you were drafted to be a top tier starter and you haven't really disappointed too much, I know Olave had one bad week within 2 good weeks. Devontae Adams had 1 good week and 2 fine weeks. You're kind of in this list, or if you've kind of proven. No, Amari Cooper, I put in this list mostly because he's getting a huge target volume and finally hit last week. I put Deontay Johnson here, but there's a lot less no-brainers than previous weeks. I put Deontay Johnson. I could be overreacting, but I love, the matchup as well going against the Bengals. So that's all I really have is like no-brainers. There's a couple other guys that there's more guys I am going to be starting most likely, but I just want to separate them a little bit. Any 1 or 2 guys you want to talk upon here in the number 1 or no-brainer tier?
Yeah, I definitely.
Am I overreacting with Deontay?
No, I don't think so. I think, yeah, I don't know. He might be. I'm just looking at the other,
especially with Thielen out. Like it's just kind of a lot of things. Like 14 targets. Bengals pass defense sucks, and it's Andy Dalton revenge game, man. So.
Yeah, I do feel like he belongs. Like I feel like I would have put him more in the wide receiver 2 with upside conversation. But I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs because you're starting all those guys anyways. And then honestly, Rice being number 1 overall, I just don't think I see that. Like he's been really good, especially this week. I don't think that he's going to get 14 targets necessarily. And
I don't know, man. Who is?
I mean, he could. Like, we need to see Travis Kelce step it up and get more involved in that offense. Teams might adjust a little bit better, but also the matchup with the super banged up Chargers on the other side of the ball. Like, I just don't know if I see that. I could be totally eating crow. I think well, I mean, this probably goes for everybody, but I was like, I think it'll take a couple of touchdowns. But yeah, number 1 overall is a huge bar. So I get it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think all these guys basically belong. Like Olave made his way back in. It's funny because like he's not getting like super targeted like he was. Maybe his pace is about the same. I mean, 14 targets in 3 games.
You got to look at percentage with Olave though, because like they didn't throw the ball the first 2 weeks. That's the only issue.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
Like I think his 6 targets week 2 were like over 25% target share or something, So,
yeah. And who knows? I mean, if they, they've been winning games, so it's like maybe that doesn't necessarily change, and he's not necessarily that volume guy anymore. Yeah. Like, yeah, the percentage can be good, but if it's not a whole lot of opportunities, like he's going to have to be hyper efficient with it, and that's not necessarily what we've seen from him before. So, but yeah, you're definitely starting him. So,
we need to have a conversation again. I mean, we had Mike Evans in this group last week, and nothing changed. He hasn't had a game above 6 targets. It's 3 straight games. He has 6, 6, and 3. If he didn't catch 2 touchdowns week 1, everyone would be freaking out. No one's really freaking out about Mike Evans, and I kind of get it because it's like, oh, he has 1,000 yards every year, but it's like, well, we have all these concerns with other receivers who are older, but why don't we have that? I guess with Mike Evans a little bit, like. He's 31 years old, and that we generally see fall offs at this point. And it's like the guy has 100. He's averaging 40 yards this year a game, and 5 catches a game. So like, and he has his 2 touchdowns. So I don't know. I think they are gonna step it up a bit, but I do think it's interesting. And then Ayuk, that was the game last week. This is the Ayuk game, and he did nothing. And it was all Juwan Jennings. I shouldn't say nothing. He went 5 for 48, but not what we expected. So, like, I'm still starting these guys, but I don't know, man. Like Debo could potentially be back. Kittle could be back. Like that's only going to make things, worse for Ayuk. So, do you think it's just slow start training camp stuff, or you can talk upon those two guys if you want.
Yeah, I think Mike Evans, you still give him one more week. Like Patrick Surtain basically took him away last week, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like, well, you're still starting Mike Evans, but I think you might have to start looking at that a little bit more. Those types of receivers against the Broncos. So still going to start him one more week. It is kind of funny because like he always has, that touchdown upside. And granted, he had 2 in one game, but if you like pace out like what he's on, on pace for it, or what I'm saying, it's basically like 800. No, only about
it's like 700.
Yeah, 700, 600 yards, but 10 touchdowns. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's why you're still starting him. At least give him one more week, I would say. I can't imagine benching him but he might turn into the boom bust like type of player because that's kind of what he's been so far, Yeah. And his career kind of tracks with that a little bit, not super heavily targeted in general in the past, like obviously very involved. Ayuk, it's kind of tough. I don't know if Kittle and Debo coming back necessarily hurt him. Like obviously like his target share will go down, but maybe it'll allow him to be more efficient in general because he won't be have all of the attention of the defense. So, and that's basically what happened last year. He was just hyper efficient. A lot of the Niners were that last year. Like it wasn't necessarily a volume thing, but we kind of talked about this in the off season, that he's going to have to maintain that crazy efficiency, like Purdy with his touchdown rate and just like the yards after catch and everything, like was just like out of this world good last year. So we're seeing that regression a bit. So he might be falling a bit down into the wide receiver 2 with upside situation.
Yeah. He's also the prime candidate for Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback for the Patriots, to kind of shadow. He's not going to do that probably to Debo. So if Debo's out there. Next group is just guys like we just haven't seen the boom yet. They're all guys that are producing and giving you something at least. Garrett Wilson, I think, is top 30 or top 35 in half PPR. I think London's almost top 24. Pickens and Moore, I think, are outside the top 36, but they're all like guys that you're starting. They're getting volume. They're getting, you look at their on pace numbers and it's like, oh, they're on pace for a good season, but we haven't seen the boom yet. So, if you had to pick one of these guys, like I think to me, George Pickens is the most concerning just because the nature of the offense, even though he's kind of like the one that's in, it's kind of just him and no one else. Whereas like even Garrett Wilson is a little bit of competition with like guys like Lazard, DJ Moore, obviously, and then London, obviously. So anyone you're kind of really starting to worry about a little bit or that might not be, return what we drafted them to be?
Yeah, DJ Moore was definitely like concerning given like target competition, rookie quarterback kind of a thing, like going into this year. Like I do think he was being drafted too high, like not because of a talent or anything like that, but just for those reasons that I just said. So I didn't think it was going to be this bad necessarily, but it's tough, like Caleb needs a little more time. Like it's only been 3 games. Like he is getting the target volume. Still, he's just not turning it into a whole lot. And the touchdown upside just isn't really there at the moment. There's always touchdown upside with him. Like he can rip off those big plays, but definitely concerning. Pickens, I wonder, if they continue to win games, like, does he ever get to play with Russell Wilson?
No, it's just a field job.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like, they don't really need him to do what we were hoping he was going to have to do. Like their run game's been good enough. Like, people still respect that the defense is good. So it's just kind of like, I don't really know what to do with him.
Yeah.
I can definitely see like him and Moore kind of, they're moving down that list into wide receiver 3 territory for sure.
Yeah, it's possible. Wide receiver 2s with upside: Zay Flowers, Stephon Diggs, who's wide receiver 12, by the way. Tyreek Hill with the nature, the situation of the quarterback. Terry McLaurin, I put in here just because hopefully we see him and Jaden Daniels kind of find that connection, and that could just be a bonanza shootout. Bad defenses, Cardinals, Commanders. Jaden Reed, if Jordan Love plays. Jamison Williams, I still have here, even though we saw a down game. We still got to, take the first 2 weeks into consideration a little bit. And then I did move Deontay in here. You convinced me. So fair with this list. Like, any of these guys you disagree with, they don't have upside, or they shouldn't be, they should be higher, should be lower, or how you feeling about this list? These are all, again, most likely starters, unless you're just like stacked.
Yeah. I mean, I would say Zay Flowers kind of belongs in that other category. Like,
which one?
Well, sorry. Like when we said haven't seen the boom, but I guess we weren't really counting on him as like a boom bust kind of player. But
yeah, I mean, the 7 for 91 and a touchdown, like it's close to boom. Like that's close enough for PPR. 22 points.
It's true. Maybe I'm just being a little rough on him, but it's like, the Ravens.
Leave him alone, damn it.
What's that?
I said, leave him alone.
I know, right? But yeah, I know it's kind of funny to say, Diggs here, like over DJ Moore, but it's like, we're just seeing him like, I can easily see that kind of going the other way, but it's just not going that way, or it hasn't yet. Meaning Moore gets the touchdowns and Diggs is kind of like they basically swap places, like I can totally see that. Tyreek Hill, obvious, like, you're always going to start him. Well, I guess I can say that for right now this week. But yeah, it's just ugly there, given the quarterback situation. Like, hopefully, I mean, like, what do you think is going to happen with Tua just in general? Like, as like a side note, do you think he is going to come back like after his IR stint? Like,
I don't know when. I do think he comes back this year, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they're going to get the ball in Tyreek's hands. Like last week, it was just a little bit of a disaster, but like, I still think Tyreek Hill is a wide receiver too, with upside for sure. So
yeah. I don't disagree with that. Like he is going to be involved. He gets used in the backfield occasionally too. And so it's like, no, you're definitely starting him. The Jaden Reed thing is definitely, I want to see Love back out there before I really feel good.
Especially against the Vikings. But I do think he could be the solution to beating the Vikings, I guess. But
because similar to what I just said about Tyreek, like he gets used out of the backfield too. So, and that's kind of, his Deebo Samuel light, Deebo Samuel Jr., like superpower kind of a thing, Robert Woods Sr., I don't know. And Jameson, like, I wonder if we're seeing him like kind of like, I don't know. It's too small of a sample size, like, to really know what's going on there, like he had 2 really heavily involved games. And then last week he kind of went back to what he was previously. So definitely keep an eye on, like, but yeah, the upside's, there for sure.
Yeah, he could definitely be moving. So into this wide receiver 3 category, T. Higgins, I still have JSN there. This is 3 wide receiver leagues in a flex. Juwan Jennings, if those guys are still out, it should be in here. Khalil Shakir, I think should be up here at this point. He's been playing pretty well. He is wide receiver 17 on the year. So I have him in here. And then Rome Odunze, I think I like that matchup with the Rams. And we saw kind of the big game, and hopefully Caleb getting it together a little bit, even though it was kind of garbage time. It's still important to see. So all these guys are in the wide receiver 3 territory for me. Is there a guy here in particular you want to talk about that you don't trust as a wide receiver 3, or are you?
No, I think you are starting all these guys, Juwan Jennings, I think, kind of gets pushed down into flex at best if one of Kittle or Debo comes back. But honestly, I don't think I even really want to flex him if either one comes back. But you probably still can in a pinch. But the nice thing is, you probably picked him up off a waiver wire. And if you started him last week, you're super happy. But I don't know if he's really going to be in your starting lineup in general. Shakir, the offense is just humming right now. He's not being heavily targeted or anything like that, but he is kind of getting it done. But I
bet you his target share percentage is pretty damn high.
Yeah, I know, that's kind of weird, right? Josh Allen is not really throwing it a ton. Just looking at his pass attempts, he's averaging maybe about 25 a game ish. Maybe that's even a little high too, but right around there. So I think you're happy. What's that?
Devontae Adams is out.
Oh man,
didn't even know he was hurt.
Old man stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But I kind of like a lot of these guys in this category. Higgins, we can also obviously see hopefully he'll be a little more healthy this week. And I mean, he did play the snaps last week. They just didn't ask him a whole lot. He was a little bit more of a distraction than anything. And the matchup's honestly not that great for receivers because you could just run the ball on Carolina, but that might be changing, if Dalton can do what he did last week, people are going to have to respect that pass for sure.
Yep. Boom bust players: Calvin Ridley, Xavier Worthy, Rashid Shaheed, Tank Dell. We don't need to focus on these guys individually, but overall, at what point do they not become boom busts? We have 1 week of Worthy and then 2 weeks of nothing, or we have nothing for Dell, but booming. Is there a time when we kind of have to switch these guys up from boom bust, or is it more we know what they're capable of type of thing? So
yeah, it's kind of tough. Dell didn't practice again this week anyway.
Yeah, he might not even
today. So it's tough because you saw the good games. And that's just kind of the nature of these types of players, it was pretty disappointing for Shaheed to get absolutely nothing done last week, but that's
there's a good chance you have not benefited from Shaheed at all, even though he's the wide receiver or whatever on the season, because you might not have started him the first 2 weeks and then you finally did, and then he does nothing. He's wide receiver 21 here, and there's a good chance no one's even benefited from that. So,
yeah, for sure.
That's the boom bust players.
Yeah, Gabe Davis.
Yeah,
especially because the goose egg.
Real quick, I do want to get to this next tier here because I think it might take a little bit of time here. I don't know what to do with these guys. Brian Thomas, we know is good, just not getting enough targets. Christian Kirk, I think it was more of a product of facing the Bills than anything. So I'm a little bit skeptical about starting him. Michael Pittman's just sucking and not getting anything really. He's wide receiver 73 on the year. Jalen Waddle with the quarterback situation. Hopkins, and then a little bit more positive side, the last two. Hopkins put up 16 points. He did miss time in training camp and had an injury, and maybe he's just getting back healthy from that. And then Quentin Johnston is wide receiver 16 on the year in half PPR. So what I want to hear particularly what you're doing with Waddle and Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, Waddle, I'd probably throw him in that wide receiver 3 category. I really don't want to start him, honestly, because all our worst fears came true this last week, where we're I don't know if we're going to be able to do it, but you start him because you know what he's capable of. But I just don't think it's going to get done. Like, I totally get, like, given where you drafted him and everything and what the makeup of your lineup might be. It's like, most likely he's getting started, but it's like, I don't know if that's a good idea, like he was good in that first game with Tua and hasn't done anything since. So I think you're benching him if you can, might as well start a boom bust player. Honestly, I'd rather start
that.
Yeah, I know, for reals. Like, Pittman, I'm benching him. Oh, sorry, who was the second one? That wasn't even who you said.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston. I think we're all benching Pittman. Probably benching the other guys until we see it, a little bit more. But Quentin Johnston, we've seen it 2 weeks now, and again, he's wide receiver 16. What are you doing if Herbert's starting?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he doesn't get the touchdown, like, which, more likely than not, a receiver is not going to get the touchdown kind of thing. But I mean, that is kind of like, I remember they kind of talked about him last year. It's like they need to, like, he should be like kind of a go-to guy in the red zone. If Herbert's not playing, I'm definitely not playing him. Like, but honestly, I'd rather start Jalen Waddle like over Quentin Johnston. Like, I just feel like that Chargers offense is gonna just struggle, especially like, what are they gonna do? Like, I just have no idea how they can win this game, which means they will, like against Kansas City, but I doubt it. Like, I just don't feel good about that.
Most of those guys I do want to sit if I can,
Sure.
Like, I think that's kind of like the verdict out of them. And then, I mean, Flex is at best. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say Christian Kirk, like you mentioned him, or no? Or you just said
I just said, I think it was more related to Buffalo, just gives up everything over the middle of the field. So, I predicted him to have a good game. So,
yeah, they're good at taking away those big plays, and they leave that middle kind of open to, like, that's where you have to beat them. So,
yeah,
I like that.
Flexes at best don't really need to spend too much time here. These are more like, probably you want to be starting these guys maybe during bye weeks, but not necessarily now, or else you're kind of down bad. It's Jerry Jeudy, Darnell Mooney has been pretty good. Alan Lazard, Jacoby Myers, I think we need to move up because of Devontae Adams being out and probably into the wide receiver 3 territory. Do you agree with that with Jacoby Myers?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe even wide receiver. Nah, not quite wide receiver 2 with upsides. Yeah, 3s is correct, I think.
Yeah. Although, surprisingly, Jacoby Myers is wide receiver 28 on the year. I don't think people would realize that. These are upside stashes for me. Xavier Legette, Christian Watson, which is what he always is in his career so far. And then Keon Coleman, rookies and young guys with potential. And then the last one's just kind of like you're rounding out the bench. Only have 51, I think. You don't have 60 as usual, but round out the bench. Guys that I still think should be on the bench. There's a little bit of upside, or maybe heavy bye weeks, you're starting them. It's McConkey, Sutton, Demarcus Robinson, Dobbs, Lockett. I don't know if there's anything you want to talk about to finish up here with those last 2 categories.
No, I think that's pretty good. You might as well throw Tutu Atwell in there as long as the other guys are missing,
There's definitely other guys that probably belong on here. Like on that, there you could probably make a huge tier. A huge tier of guys like that. Like you said, Tutu Atwell. There's a couple other guys in here. I'm trying to remember, but maybe like Josh Downs.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. Alec Pierce. Who knows? Jalen Naylor. If I think Addison's back, but. I think that's it then. Unless there's any last things you want to bring up?
No, I was actually just trying to pull up what are the tight end rankings, but we can just close it up if you want.
Yeah, I would say Tyler Conklin might be a good one. Tight end 16, think he could have a good game.
I will expect him to be in your competition lineup then.
Maybe. may be. I don't even know the results. I need to add that up. And then, yeah, quarterback, I always like Anthony Richardson's technically not top 12. That's an easy take for me. But yeah, that is week 4. Let us know if you have any specific start-sit questions in the chat. Help us get to 600 subscribers. I think we are 17 away from that. Yeah, 17 away. So almost there. Help us get there. And we will be back with some live streams and other videos soon. Any last words, Brian?
No, that's it. Good luck.
All right. Good luck this week for sure. We'll catch you guys soon.